Welcome to Public Health Matters, where we talk about matters of public health. I'm Bobbie Bagley, Chief Public Health Official for the City of Nashua's Division of Public Health and Community Services. And I'm joined today by our Housing Services Officer, Latonya Muccioli. Latonya, welcome this afternoon to Public Health Matters.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you back. And today we're going to talk about, especially with it being this cold season right now, and let's talk about what's been happening with housing, with our closure of the largest encampment that we had here in Nashua, and also the opening of the Elm Street warming station, the benefits of that, and why that was needed.
All right. Well, so last year, I want to say it was around October, our community started having conversations about the downtown businesses and the impact that they were feeling for their customer base and just their services in general, relative to just our unsheltered population and just some of the things that they were experiencing downtown. So that conversation had started, and folks felt there was a need for a camping ban. So after many conversations, many hours of testimony, it was decided by the Board of Aldermen that there would be a ban on camping for public property. There was also prohibiting parking on public property. And that was primarily for RVs, larger vehicles that folks were using to shelter in. Mm-hmm. So our largest encampment, our community health workers had been going out all summer, and that encampment, we estimated around 75 or so people there. And that was throughout the year, and we had to put together a plan for relocation of folks. Mm-hmm. So the ordinance became in effect as of December 1st for prohibiting camping on public property. And part of that ordinance that was amended included a 15-day period for giving notice to folks to allow for them to find another location to go to. So our community health workers during that 15-day period, they were going out daily to the encampment to provide street outreach, housing navigation, try to get folks into emergency shelter, and really just work with folks who may have substance use disorder, try to get them into recovery, and just really any option at that point. The overnight warming station did open on December 1st, so that was excellent for folks as a temporary solution, but as you know, it's not a shelter.
Right.
So folks can go there. We're open from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. daily, and the purpose of the warming station is to prevent loss of life in the winter months for anyone living unsheltered. So it's very crucial that we have the warming station. We know that we do have some emergency shelters for folks in the city, but those are often at capacity. Or there may be some requirements to entry that folks aren't able to meet, such as sobriety. So the Elm Street warming station is really where we can meet folks where they're at. It's a low barrier, so folks are able to come and go. We do allow for cigarette breaks throughout the night. As we know, a lot of folks with substance use disorder also utilize nicotine as well. So that's been really helpful for them. I think also folks who are under a tremendous amount of stress often resort to smoking sometimes. So they have the ability to go outside, get some fresh air, take a walk if they need to, and come back, which isn't something that's typical in a shelter environment. So it's really important that we have that as an available option for folks.
Yeah, and even with some of the warming stations that are set up, they're all of the different types, the ones that we have here in New Hampshire and also in Massachusetts, they're all run very differently. Mm-hmm. And so some of their administrative rules may look very different. In NASHUA, we just happen to have and are standing by a standard of low barrier. So can you go into a little bit more detail of what that entails? So you mentioned people get to go in and out, mm-hmm. So there's not once you're in, you're in for the night and you're locked in and you can't go back out. So talk a little bit more about what does a low barrier warming station from our perspective look like, and what can people expect if they go there?
Yeah, so it's really all about reducing barriers to entry. So some warming stations or shelters may require folks to have an ID. We recognize that that's something that's very difficult because as folks are moving along, as the encampments get closed, folks lose their vital documents. And you can't get an ID unless you have a birth certificate. And if you don't know where your birth certificate is, you can't get that without another form of identification. So it gets really complex for folks. So we don't require IDs for entry. We don't require sobriety. We do not allow folks to use substances on site. So we recognize that again, in meeting folks where they're at, we take a harm reduction approach. So we know that folks are going to use, especially folks that might have opioid use disorder. They'll get sick if they're not consistently using. So we recognize that sometimes folks may come in under the influence. Therefore, we have our staff trained in Narcan administration and the ability to recognize an overdose, because sometimes that can mimic sleeping. So just some shallow breathing, and if you're really not diligent about checking on folks, you could miss those signs. So we are very strategic in training our staff to recognize an overdose sign. So that's something that's really important. And again, like I said, we have folks that have mental health conditions, so it's really difficult to stay in an enclosed environment that might be loud, very overstimulating for people. So we do allow folks to leave and come back as they need to.
Yes, well, thank you about that. And can you talk a little bit about, sometimes people think the warming station is a shelter. They're very two distinct operations. So can you go into a little bit more detail about the difference or the distinction between a shelter and a warming station, and why Elm Street is considered a warming station and not a shelter?
Sure. The primary difference is beds or cots. So shelters have sleeping accommodations. The overnight warming station does not. We are located in a cafeteria at the Old Elm Street Middle School. We do have more comfortable chairs for our guests this year so that they can relax as best as possible. But really, we're just serving as the overflow to the shelter. So the purpose of the warming station is for folks who cannot get into the shelter. They still have an indoor place that they can stay warm and stay safe from the winter weather elements. So we don't have the sleeping accommodations. Typically, shelters will have case management and telephone access available for guests. They often have staff that are working with folks to save money, get a job, and all of those things. And the warming station is truly, truly, truly just to keep people out of the winter weather elements.
Yes. And talk a little bit about the staff. So, and what's the difference between last year and this year? What were some of the things we learned, as a division in our operations, and how have we improved upon that?
So we have more staff this year, probably double the number that we did last year. So we had about 12 or so staff last year. This year we have over 20. And the staff that we have this year, they have a broad range of experience. So we have some folks with lived experience in housing instability, substance use. We have folks who have experience working in emergency departments or in the hospital. We have staff that have experience working with substance use providers, and just staff that have experience with family members or other people from the community that have struggled with substance use or being unsheltered. So we're very grateful for the wide variety of staff that we have. Also, some folks with experience in working with either group homes or mental health supports, education and mental health as well. So we are very blessed with the staff that we have this year. We have a more robust training curriculum. So what we noticed last year, there was some situations that could have been de-escalated. And that's tough, because you have to, once you get to know folks, it's easier as well. You build rapport with them. Folks are really in difficult situations.
Yeah, it's hard to be unhoused. It's hard to be unhoused with a mental health disorder. It's hard to be unhoused with substance use disorder. It's hard to be unhoused with isolation. It's hard to be unhoused and not have, besides being isolated, not having any other supports around, no family. So you're talking a really tough life.
Even thinking about, I was sick a couple of weeks ago. I had the flu, and I can't imagine if I didn't have a bed to lay in, a house to go to. You know, I'm having to go from the library to the soup kitchen to this place and just have to be transient all day
Constant.
just to be indoors when you're not
Right.
feeling well. So again, our staff received a lot of training this year, just to recognize, okay, we need to de-escalate. We can't take things personally. Folks could be having a bad day, so how do we work with them to keep them safe? So there was some training on that, training on interactions with police, which is excellent, because we know that sometimes with folks that have experienced unsheltered homelessness or substance use disorder, oftentimes they have had negative interactions with the police. So it is very triggering for folks if we're calling the police regularly. Even if it's not calling the police on them, it can be triggering just to be in the presence of a
Right.
situation like that.
Right.
So we really are trying to work to have a trauma-informed approach and just really, really, really individualize the support that we can give to each guest.
Yeah, and that's really, really important. And one of the other things that we've done, and the training that we're using is out of the Niche Academy with Ryan Dowd,
Yes.
who happens to have had over 16, probably longer than that, because some of the training that we're looking at was made in 2021, and so he introduces himself as having 16 years of experience, and so that was over 4 years ago. So a person that has a wealth of experience working with the unhoused population and really built the Niche Academy around first the libraries, because that was a place where many, because it's open to the community, where many individuals that had housing instability or are living in situations of homelessness would spend a lot of time in the libraries. Originally, his trainings were for library staff. And we've used those lovely trainings for our community health workers, as well as the support staff for the warming station. And it really does make a big difference, because one of the things that we talked with our staff about is leading with empathy.
Yes.
And how the caring and compassion is needed for individuals who we may not always understand their situations and circumstances that led them to where they are, but we have to meet them where they are. So can you talk a little bit about why that's so important? And even for our viewers, that are watching, because sometimes it's really hard to understand why people would make certain decisions and why can't they just.
Yeah, it's not as easy, unfortunately, as that. And something that I feel like we learned last year was when we had the warming station opened, again, we're not forcing services on folks. It's really just, hi, how are you? Welcome. We would support folks by giving them coffee. We have TV, some games, other things, light amenities to just make them a little more comfortable while they're there. And over time, we found that, after their first interaction at the warming station, which might have been in early January of last year, by end of last year, some folks were willing to go into recovery. They were willing to come in for other services. They were willing to go with our staff to complete a mental health intake. And these are things that they had never considered doing before.
Right.
So I think it's so important when you meet people where they're at with empathy, non-judgmental, you're not forcing anything on them, and really taking a person-centered approach to move at their pace. When folks are ready, they come around.
They
and
do.
we've seen that time and time again. And it's just been so rewarding, especially because we keep hearing from the guests. We heard last year, we had I would say it was like a little feedback session that we had, and we got some food with everyone, and we just asked them, how has your experience been here at the warming station? And the number one theme that we were seeing is they felt that the staff cared about them. The staff were very kind and compassionate towards them,
Yes.
and they felt, unfortunately, like they hadn't been treated like that throughout the community. And I think that's a big theme that came up when we were discussing the no camping legislation, is a lot of folks felt like, we're from this community, but we're not welcomed into it, or we don't belong.
Right.
So I'm very happy that folks feel the warming station is a place where they are welcomed, and folks do want them there and care about them there.
Yeah, empathy is the answer. Right?
It
And
is.
it's so important, because when we think about the humanity and the humanness of, the work that we're doing and the work that the support staff provide, and that just being there, sometimes just listening. The door is open for people to come in and be warm, but there's also ears and hearts and minds that are there to receive as well. And then we have the volunteers, and so that's another component, that we really feel blessed to have folks that are committed to giving back through their volunteerism and giving up their time, because the warming station is open from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So you're talking overnight hours where people that may have worked and then come and spend 4 hours, in these block chunk of times, with our guests. And we call them guests, at the warming station.
And during the holiday season.
And
so
during the holiday
again,
season.
we had some extended hours on Christmas because,
Right.
as you know, other places in the community are closed. So where are folks supposed to be?
Right.
And it was very cold on Christmas Day. So
was.
very thankful to have the volunteers and the staff that dedicated their time to coming in to support the guests.
Yeah, so 12 hours a day, 7 days a week from December 1st until April 15th. So that's a lot of hours, that's a lot of time, but every single individual there is worth it. And that's the perspective that we come from when we take that public health approach, and it is person-centered. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves to be treated with empathy and compassion. Everyone deserves to have love and kindness extended to them, no matter what their state is. So now let's talk about some of the things that we've learned over the past year as far as our data and our numbers, right?
Sure.
And so we know the warming station is there for the purpose of making sure that we can keep people inside and housed so that no one succumbs to this cold winter weather. And we've been able to save lives because it is a low barrier warming station. We have had individuals that have overdosed, and we've actually been able to save lives there. And that's the purpose of the warming station. So that may sound counterintuitive, but the purpose is to make sure that those individuals do not die outside. So it's a life-saving service that the warming station staff are providing, and those volunteers being there as well. It's life-saving. We're hearing about data and statistics about housing and homelessness. And so from our point in time count last year, what did our numbers look like? And then we heard some data that showed that there was a 18% decrease in homelessness across the country. And then I'm looking at where we are and saying, where are they seeing this impact? Because that has not been our experience.
Yes, so it depends on what data you look at. And I think that the way that we do so federally is a little bit flawed. So typically, continuums of care, which are coalitions to end homelessness. We have 3 in New Hampshire. So we have Greater Nashua, Manchester, and the balance of state is the rest of New Hampshire. And every year we are required to count the number of individuals experiencing homelessness in our community. There's 2 categories for that. There's unsheltered, so that's really anyone who is living in a place not meant for human habitation. That could be a car, that could be an abandoned building, that could be an encampment, that could be living in a bus terminal, subways, things like that.
Garages, parking garage.
Yeah. And then sheltered homelessness, which is our emergency shelters. That is our transitional housing programs and safe haven programs. So we have to count all of those individuals on a single night the last week of January every year. So here in New England, we're already at a disadvantage because of the weather. So I know I've been doing the point in time, this will be my second, third year. And it's hard because, especially if there's a lot of snow or ice, there's certain locations that we can't get to find folks. Also, oftentimes when the weather gets colder, people are resourceful and they find other temporary solutions, such as couch surfing at a friend's house. Unfortunately, per the definition of homelessness from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, we can't count them. So we also know for youth, it might be someone who's a teen and they're staying with their friend's family. We see that often. We cannot count those individuals either.
Right.
So we know that count is already at a disadvantage because of the weather and the definition of homelessness. So that's also a big concern. So folks can use that as a number to count and really quantify homelessness, but also you could use year-long data. So we have what's called the Homeless Management Information System. And in New Hampshire, I think Vermont and some other states utilize this system to count all the individuals experiencing homelessness in our community. And you can pull data for the whole year to look at that. So if you're looking at that, it might show different data points than if you're just looking at the point in time. Something else that we felt was important this year was for us to do our own unofficial point in time count in the summer. So what we had found was in January of last year, we had counted, I believe it was approximately 38 individuals that were unsheltered. We started just seeing more and more folks outside. We saw that the encampment was growing. So we were like, let's just count people again and see what we can find. So the day of the point in time count, we had counted over 50 individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So again, an increase from that 38 number.
And this is the summer one,
This
though.
is the summer one,
mid-year.
July,
Yes,
mid-year. However, even that number wasn't accurate because as our community health workers were going out to the encampments weekly in the summer, we had been keeping track of everybody that was there. And based on that number, we were seeing over 100 people that were unsheltered.
Yeah.
So that just shows the discrepancy. The single point in time count date, we had 50 something. And then throughout summer long, we had over 100. So you can only imagine year-long data and just other data points. So it's really hard to quantify.
Right,
And I'll
right.
always say that these are always undercounts because there's people we might not know about
Right.
that could be living in the woods, living in someone's backyard, or living in a vehicle that moves. I think there's a common misconception that people don't work that are experiencing homelessness, and they do.
Right.
We have a number of folks who are working, but they just can't afford housing.
Right.
And because they're making, I think minimum wage in New Hampshire is $7-something, $7.25,
$7.50?
$7.50. It's
Hopefully.
less than $8.
Yeah. Hopefully
Yeah.
it's up to $7.50.
And, working 40 hours a week, you still can't afford
Right.
an apartment on
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So we know that folks might be working and they might be living in their car, moving from parking lot to parking lot. So it's really difficult to count.
Yeah. And the thing about the point in time count, so I'm just going to go ahead and put my little outed out there. So there is a book, and you guys know how I love to read books. Homelessness is a housing problem. And in that book, it talks about the start of the point in time count. It started in 83, 84. And at that time, when the Housing and Urban Development came up with this system of county numbers, even then they knew that there was going to be an undercount. And so it's the data that we have and the data that we use. And so we've seen, where it looks like there's been this 11%, 18% decrease, across the country. And then I read about Illinois, how they've had 117% increase in unhoused individuals. And I look at what we have here in NASHUA, and we have this opportunity, not just NASHUA, but across the state, to do this point in time count that we're going to be doing at the end of the month. And I know you have a strategy. You think a little like I think. Okay, so what is our strategy to make sure that we can get the most accurate count so we can have a truly better idea? We know it's not going to be perfect because we're going to miss the folks that are at work because of the time that we actually do the point in time count. And we're always looking at where did they spend the night before? We ask that question, where did you sleep last night?
Yes.
And so if individuals, depending on how that night was, like tonight, it is going to be cold. So some people may be able to find a friend that may let them stay inside. If that happens on the day of the point in time count, we're not going to get that number.
The data will be a little skewed. Yes, correct. And I think also it's important to note, you have to be careful when you are looking at data, reporting data out, because there are a couple of reasons that there could be an increase or decrease. So for example, we've gotten better at doing the point in time count.
Yes.
So right now, part of my position is to track all of the encampments within the city of Nashua. And I'm able to do so in partnership with our first responders. So typically, the fire department, EMS, police department may receive a call or complaint regarding individuals living unhoused or somebody who, like an encampment, a tent, anything like that. So they will go out and respond to those calls and concerns. And if there is an encampment or somebody living unsheltered, they will take a photo complete a brief survey, and they'll send it to me. So I'll be able to track the geographic location of the site.
Right, right.
And then I follow up with our community health workers and street outreach providers, and they will go out to provide outreach at that location, get to know those individuals, build relationships with them, and assist them into housing, emergency shelter, obtaining a job, getting those vital documents that we had just talked about, really all of the things that are necessary to move forward and get into housing. So I use all of those locations that we've collected for the year as point-in-time count sites. So I have had an overwhelming amount of volunteers this year that have reached out that want to come out with us the day of the point in time. So it'll be Thursday the 29th. And we are going to probably over 30 locations. And that includes known encampments that had been previous spots for folks living unsheltered. We're also having a resource fair at the Elm Street warming station. So we're extending those hours into the daytime, having some service providers come on site. We're trying to incentivize folks that are unsheltered to come so that we can count them in the survey. And we're also expanding to the region. So this is the point in time count for the greater Nashua continuum of care, which includes the surrounding towns. So we have reached out to some of their emergency management directors to find out what locations in your community are places where folks that might be living unsheltered could be. Oftentimes it's the libraries, oftentimes it's just public buildings that folks feel comfortable and safe staying in. We're also aware of some parking lots, so sometimes big retail parking lots, folks might live in their vehicles like in the back of the parking lot, or so we're going to all of those locations to try to do a better count. So in doing so, it might look like there's an increase. There very well could be an increase, or we could just be better at data collection, or both.
Yes, and I'm going to go with it. It's going to be the both,
Yeah.
right? Latonya, I want to thank you so much for being here with us this afternoon on Public Health Matters and giving us an update on where we are with our warming station, the services that are provided there, and what we need to look forward to with our point-in-time count.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I'm Bobbie Bagley, and I'm reminding you to have a great day today and a better day tomorrow. And I'll see you next time on Public Health Matters.
It's winter, it's been brutal. Some of them sleep in tents. Some of them don't even have tents.
And the city really wanted to open the warming station to get people out of those winter weather elements and prevent any weather-related deaths. There is a large number of people living unsheltered in the community, and we've estimated those numbers to be between the 60s and 70s. I'm Latonya Muccioli. I'm the Housing Services Officer with the Division of Public Health and Community Services. Last year, we opened the warming station in February, and it was at the Unitarian Universalist Church. We weren't able to use that space this year, so we have used Elm Street, the middle school here. So we're definitely able to utilize more space and accommodate more people. The school is vacant right now, so we don't have to worry about interfering with anybody else or other programs.
Nelly for Nelamar. That's two Puerto Ricans making up a name. The warming station is open from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., 7 days a week. Holds a capacity for 50. We haven't seen 50 yet.
As of recently, typically 30 or so per night. In the month of February, we had 92 people come total throughout the month. So not everybody comes every day. A warming station doesn't have any cots or beds for folks to lay down in. Our primary purpose was to open up and provide folks some shelter to escape the winter weather elements. But it's really meant for people to kind of just drop in, stay for a little while, warm up, get out of the cold. Everybody has to be over the age of 18. We don't serve any minors here. We have folks that have just fallen on hard times, and they are, unfortunately homeless and looking for somewhere to go. We have some folks that have mental health conditions, and we have some folks that have substance use disorder.
If it's a first time, We check them in. We go through the rules. And there is also a questionnaire, a one-time questionnaire that we have them fill up about if there is any drug abuse history. We check in their bags, that's very important. I mean, they can keep their pocketbook or maybe a bag of groceries, snacks that they brought, food from elsewhere.
Our guests are really anyone. So anyone in Nashua that's living unsheltered, we're welcoming them in. We operate a low barrier model, so we're not requiring ID to get in. We're not requiring sobriety. We do not allow for people to use substances on site, but we do encourage folks, if they are using substances, to come into the warming station so that we can monitor their safety.
We already know the type of behavior that we should be looking for in case we need to apply Narcan or have to call 911. We haven't had that happen yet. We understand not everybody has support system, and that's what we're here for.
We have a total of 12 per diem staff that were hired to operate the warming station. Most of them have other employment opportunities, so they only work a couple of nights or a couple of hours per night.
I'm usually the staff member that goes in at 11 until 7 a.m. Our task is to keep the homeless safe.
We also typically have volunteers from United Way that are available as well. It'll be between 1 and 2 volunteers for a 2-hour block.
We're so thankful for them because they help us serving the coffee, the door, when somebody is coming in, or when they're gonna go smoke a cigarette, we give cigarette breaks.
And we do allow folks to come and go as they please. We do have a TV, so some folks will watch DVDs throughout the night. So we do have some games, we have cards, puzzles, and adult coloring for folks to engage in as well when they're here. We also have a bulletin board where we post job openings or other events in the community that are going on. We do have a lot of recovery resources available for anyone that's looking to enter into treatment. We do have the division's community health workers that do come on site. Sometimes they do work some shifts, and they are really able to connect folks with additional services in the community. We come across a lot of people that might not have some of their documentation. So it could be an ID, a birth certificate, and some of those things hold up the process for obtaining a job or housing, because a lot of those applications require some form of identification. So our staff are able to get folks connected to that as well.
There is a lot of resources for them to be able to get housing, to get sober home, rehabs. Unfortunately, you cannot help anybody if they don't want to be helped.
We are using opioid abatement funds to pay for the overnight warming station operations. So we have to show the need for individuals with opioid use disorder. And again, we're really trying to offer recovery resources for folks that are ready, but we're also trying to prevent opioid use. And we do receive donations for food or coffee supplies, paper products. So we have had donations from the Salvation Army, First Church of Nashua. United Way has done some donations as well. So we're always taking non-perishable food items that we can give our guests. We often get asked, why we're not operating as a shelter or we don't have spots for people to lay down. We're only using this space temporarily. So we'll finish out the season here in April, and then we'll use the warming station next winter. But after that, there's other plans that the city has for the school. So we'll have to identify a new location. We also don't want to compete with the state funding that's allocated to our shelter partners because they are able to extend their shelter beds in the winter with some of that additional funding. So we were really trying to fill the gap here. We're able to serve more people by operating as a warming station as opposed to a shelter. And again, we know that these numbers continue to increase with people that are living unsheltered in the community every year. So we really wanted a space where we could accommodate the need.
Yes, they're homeless, but it's a very, very unified community. There was a guest that died from an overdose, but it was elsewhere that died. We're still grieving about them. It took only somebody to share their drug while the person was drunk and that person passed away. He froze to death. It's because of them. that we're doing this, because at the end of the day, they still matter. It doesn't matter their circumstances, their problems. They're not their problems or circumstances. But not everybody is strong enough to say no to drugs.
So a lot of folks have said, for the most part, their experience has been very positive. They're happy to have a place to go. A lot of them said that if it wasn't for the warming station, they would have to be outside. They don't have any other options. So we're very happy that we've been able to meet the needs of those individuals and get them indoors and somewhere safe.
We're trying to do our best and help them and help their families too, because situations like addiction, it doesn't only affect them, it also affects their families.